Hi everyone, Dom Famularo here, and again I am enjoying this artist series at a distance for the Sessions panel, and I get a chance to kind of step into the world with these so many great artists. And today I am blessed to have NITA STRAUSS. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me on. What a treat.
This is so great. We had a chance to do one of our panels at a university at Cal Arts several years ago. I think you had just joined the Alice Cooper tour, and it was just so great to have you there because you spoke well for the students, and then afterwards we had a jam session. You played great, so thank you so much for your energy for that.
It was such a treat for me, and actually, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but I was a student at Cal Arts a long time ago.
So that was full circle for you then.
It was, yeah. I was there. I mean, I wasn't full-time there. I was there for their summer program, the CISA program. It was my only college experience, really, because by the time I was college age, I was already touring. So it was really cool for me to get to go back there and be on the campus and get to experience it from a different perspective.
Well, you have experienced so many great things. When I look at the stuff that you have done and that you're still doing, you really are pushing hard, and you really have this incredible passion and perseverance that is very powerful. So I want to tap into that. And I want to get into the world for people to get to know you. Guitar playing, how did it start for you? What got you into music, and where did that drive come from?
So I started playing really late from a professional musician standpoint. I started playing at 13. My dad was a professional touring musician, so he really gave me the bug for it. And before I started touring, I was all in on sports. I was doing gymnastics. I thought that was going to be my career path. And then once I picked up the guitar, it was just like, it was gone. Did not care about going to the gym anymore. Did not care about any of that stuff I had worked toward. I was just full speed ahead on music, and I loved it. I knew from really early on that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. It was almost like the guitar was calling to me when I picked it up. It was like, finally you're coming home, and it felt like that homecoming for me then. It still does now, actually. Even like sitting here in my studio playing guitar, it just feels like coming home. I started, playing with my first bands really, really quickly. Like within a couple months of learning how to play, I started playing shows around LA. Then I started touring a couple of years after that, doing, little summer tours and winter break tours in middle school and high school. About halfway through my junior year of high school, I dropped out of school to pursue music full time.
So was that when you joined the band together, the Iron Maiden all-female tribute band, Iron Maidens? Was that at that point?
Actually, that was so many years later, which is crazy. Yeah, it was years and years later that I started playing with the Iron Maidens. It was that would have been, I guess, 2011 or 2012 that I started playing with the Iron Maidens, because it wasn't that I wouldn't have done it. I would have, all of my career, I pretty much just adopted this philosophy of I would play guitar with anybody that would have me for basically any amount of money. I didn't care how much I was getting paid. A lot of times it would cost me more to do the gigs than I would be making if I made anything at all. I finished a tour with a, deathcore band in Europe, and then I would go straight out on the road with Jermaine Jackson, and then I would come straight back to LA and play with the cover band, and then I would go straight on something else. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to get all that experience as much as I possibly could.
Well, what a great open-mindedness to have. So were there any guitar players specifically that were influencing you at that time, in this developmental stage when you were in high school and in that area?
Number one for me was Steve Vai. Steve Vai was the reason why I started doing what I was doing. And I saw the movie Crossroads that Steve was in. And when I saw that scene at the end of Crossroads, when Steve is doing this guitar battle with Ralph Macchio, with the Karate Kid, it's so unrealistic now that watching it back. But I just remember being so struck by the effortlessness of Steve Vai's playing and the joy and fun that he exudes in his performance and his guitar playing. And it was so technical and so over the top and so much faster and more interesting than any guitar playing that I had ever heard to that point. But more than the technicality, it just struck me that looked fun. Like, I hope that I can have in my playing, my performance, some semblance of that joy that Vai has in his, to make young guitar players go like, man, that looks like fun. I want to do that,
Well, you definitely have that enthusiasm when you play, and you totally have that joy. It's amazing. I had the chance to sit down with Steve Vai on one of these interviews, and he is a deep philosopher and so well read and so well informed and so well studied at what he does. So, if you have anyone that's going to be a guiding force, you're picking a great guy there.
Yes, he's a very cerebral guitar player. He's a hard person to emulate. I remember reading that he fasted for 10 days and then he wrote his masterpiece, For the Love of God. And I was like, I'm going to try it. And I tried to fast and I didn't write anything like that. I think you have to have a mind like Steve's to really, follow in Steve's footsteps, because I was just cranky, hungry.
Were there lessons you were studying with teachers at all? What was your developmental stage?
I was totally self-taught. Came from a family without a lot of money. My dad plays a little guitar, so he taught me my first few chords and stuff, but he's not what you call a very technical player. So he kind of taught me the very, very basics. And then from then I went to the instructional videos. Marty Friedman, melodic control, Ingrid Malmsteen, play loud. Frank Gambale is where I learned modes, no more mystery, anything that I could get my hands on. John Petrucci, rock discipline, like those were my teachers. And in retrospect, looking back now that I teach a little bit myself, I feel like I definitely started out with too advanced teachers. I should have started with the basics, but I wanted to play like Steve Vai. That's all I wanted to do. I had my $99 Squire Strat, and I was just working that whammy bar like nobody's business, trying to do all these tricks that Steve was doing, wondering why it didn't sound the same. I just really kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool and learned how to swim from there.
So were there bands that you were listening to? Were there any kind of influences pulling you into their music?
I was a little metalhead kid. I was listening to, the shred stuff like Vai and Satriani, Marty Friedman, Paul Gilbert, Jason Becker, that kind of stuff. But then I was listening to metal bands. I was listening to like these Scandinavian metal bands, In Flames, At the Gates, Children of Bodom, like that kind of heavy stuff. So it was this really juxtaposition between the heavy stuff and the technicality of the guitar playing and the music. And it's funny now, like listening back to the stuff that I write with my solo music, I still feel like that same kid that listens to that same stuff, even though my musical tastes have evolved a little bit. I think I still write like that 15-year-old kid just listening to In Flames and Steve Vai.
Well, that's a great level of enthusiasm. You really kind of keep that spirit of what sparks you in the beginning. That's still with you. So at this point now, you're playing, you're doing it. Are you starting to meet musicians to kind of hang out with and jam with?
It was like a gradual progression. And it's so interesting because, you get the higher profile gigs come along. And, when I started playing with Alice 7 years ago, people started saying, oh, this is crazy. It's meteoric rise. She was no one. And now she's here. And I was like, it's much more like pushing a heavy rock up a steep hill than a meteoric rise. There's no such thing as a meteoric rise. People just don't see all the work that it took to get up to that point. So, I was playing, like I said, I was playing with local bands, cover bands. I had one gig working in the studio with a hip hop producer that wanted to have guitar stuff in hip hop songs. So he would play me a beat and I would play little riffs and it would end up being used in a rap song. I was not joking when I said that I got off a tour. I played 30 shows in 30 days with a really heavy deathcore band and went straight into rehearsal with Jermaine Jackson and went to Africa with Jermaine Jackson. Like, I just didn't care who it was. I had no standard for what I would and wouldn't do as a professional musician. I just wanted to get out there and play music. And, I went on that European tour for $10 a day per diem and nothing else. And then I went out to a super pro gig, playing with most of Michael Jackson's band. And I think it was that level of sort of humility at the time. I didn't think there was any gig that I was too good for or not good enough for. I just really wanted to learn and work and get better. And if someone asked me if I could do something, I would just say yes. I didn't even, when I got that call for Jermaine Jackson's band and they said, how are you at playing funk? I was like, great, fine. I don't know. I think I told that story at our panel in Keller. It's like, I didn't know what funk guitar playing was any more than, any more than I do now. And I did it. But I think there's a point in your career as a professional musician when if someone asks you something, you go, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. And then you work your ass off to make that true, to make that a reality. So when you show up, they're like, oh yeah, she said she could do it and she did it.
Where do you think that level of confidence comes from? Because that really you have to believe in yourself that even though you don't know where you're going, but you have that desire to want to go there and you just commit to it. And then you realize I'm there. Where does that confidence come from?
I don't know if it's confidence so much as stubbornness. Because there's still a lot of times, even now, there's still a lot of times when I don't know if I can do something. but I'm going to go out there and do it and do my best and try, with everything that I have to do it. If I fall on my face, I fall on my face. But at least I will always fall on my face trying. And I will never be outworked. I will never be out-practiced. I will never show up unprepared. My whole goal in my professional life is to go into everything and give it everything I have. And if I fall on my face and it doesn't work out, at least I can never go back and say I didn't try hard enough, because I'll always try as hard as I can.
Well, what a great level of commitment that you have, that you're really willing to take that chance and see where it takes you. But when you did that tour in Europe, for example, what was it like? What was the first tour that you did where all of a sudden now you're traveling and here you are, onward and upward? What was that like?
Onward and upward. It's always that. I mean, let's see, that tour in particular, it wasn't my first tour, but it was my first European tour. It was a package of 8 bands. We were the 4th band out of 8. 8 bands sharing 2 buses, 30 shows in 30 days. And I actually didn't know I was only getting paid PD until the tour was over and the band came back and said, we didn't make that much, so we're not going to pay you. So it was a learning experience, and I was devastated at the time, thinking I had gone out and done this, done a good job and I was going to get paid fairly for it. But it also was a really good learning experience, as that band told me, let that teach you get a contract. And it did.
So the business side, now you're starting to get a taste for how sometimes it might not be so clear. What business skills did you have to learn in the course of this process?
Gosh, how much time do we have? I think one important thing for a lot of musicians to understand is you can't always do everything yourself. And I have a bad case of do-it-yourself-itis. I like to do everything myself. I engineer my own albums. I produce everything myself. For a long time, I managed myself. I do think that every musician needs to have a good attorney, if not necessarily a good manager. Get yourself a good attorney. My attorney, Eric, has been by my side since the very beginning. You can't always do everything yourself. At a certain point, it's important to take a step back and let somebody who's really good at things handle the things that need to be done, so you can focus in on what's really important, which is making music. So
you'll hire an attorney if there's certain contracts that you want to understand. You got to bring in a professional to look at that.
You must. And this is something that a lot of musicians, I think, don't understand. They go, okay, well, I can read this over and look at it and have, it seems to make sense to me. But I think a good attorney is much more important than a good manager for a lot of people.
Boy, interesting. So when did the Alice Cooper gig come up? How'd you make that contact and how'd that all begin?
So that was 2014. I was on a gig called the Monsters of Rock Cruise. And I was actually doing double duty that year. I was playing in the Iron Maidens, which is the Iron Maiden tribute band. And I was also playing in a band called Femme Fatale. And one of the shows, I can't recall, it must have been Femme playing. It was the middle of the night. We're on a cruise ship with 30 other bands, kind of like the same thing. We played at like 1 o'clock in the morning in the belly of the ship. And after the show, I started talking with Kip Winger, who was also on the cruise, playing with Winger. And as we got to talking, he asked me, what I was doing. Is this your full-time gig? And I said, no, this is just, something I'm doing. And if you ever hear of anything that might be a good fit for me, I'd really appreciate if you keep me in mind. And I'm eternally grateful that he did keep me in mind. A couple months later, when Rianthi left Alice's band and they were looking for a guitar player to replace him. I think they weren't even necessarily looking for a girl, to hear Alice talk about it now. But I'm very grateful that Kip put my name forward and I got to audition. My audition process was for Shep Gordon, who has managed Alice since the beginning of time, and for Bob Ezrin, which no pressure at all. Right. So my audition process was through those two, and thankfully they liked me, and it's been an amazing, amazing journey ever since.
Well, you've had to deliver the goods, which is extremely important. I mean, that's what the bottom line that comes down to. What was it like in the audition? I mean, everyone, people watching, they're always trying, when's there an audition? What can I do? What was it like when you walked in there? Was it tense? Were you relaxed? Was your mind spinning? What was that like?
Well, so actually, this was really unorthodox, and I guess they were really ahead of their time now, with social distancing and everything, but I did everything via video. So I did it in the comfort of my house. They wanted to see videos of me playing 3 songs. And I've been in those cattle call audition situations many, many times growing up in LA and showing up with, 30 or 40 other guitar players trying to go in and, do these events at MI or SIR or, these different, all the initials.
Yeah.
But this was at my house, so they had a few songs they wanted to see me play, and I went through, I did the videos, and when I tell you, Dom, that I pulled out every trick in the book, like it was so, like I was so proud of how it came out. I had the guitar, like I was here and here, and then putting it behind my head and spinning it around in my little studio room, so uncool. But like, I wanted to show that I was a performer, so I did it, and I sent it in, and they hated it. I got chewed out for the first time in a long time. They said, this is not what Alice is all about. Like, can you give it another try? And thankfully, they ended up giving me 2 separate tries, which I guess is pretty unheard of in that world. And each time, I guess my saving grace was that they were never trying to see if I could do it. They were trying to see if I could dial it back. And I have a hard time dialing it back at times. But thankfully, by the grace of God, they gave me, a couple chances to dial it back. The third time around, I dialed it back enough. And I got the gig. And that was the Motley Crue tour in 2014. And the crazy thing about it, I love telling that part of the story, is that just 2 weeks before, I was looking at tickets for the show at the Hollywood Bowl, thinking like, oh, how cool, Motley Crue and Alice Cooper right up the street from my house. Might be my last time seeing Motley Crue in LA. And 2 weeks later, I bought my parents a box at the Hollywood Bowl to come see that show, to come see me play. So it was a dream come true, for sure.
Well, that truly is a dream come true. And, it's kind of interesting because during that audition, they must have seen something in you that they really liked. They must have seen your ability and your talent, and they wanted to have that presence of your sound and style delivered in a way that would have been more, appropriate for Alice. So I guess they probably, Alice Cooper had a vision. They were looking for that. So you must have been just at the right place at the right time.
Oh, definitely. And after I had it, I guess the word got out that he was going to be hiring a new guitar player. And I started getting so many texts. Alice Cooper is hiring, you better get on that, start contacting people. And I couldn't tell anybody. So I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. It sounds great. I'll definitely do that. And then people came out of the woodwork way after the fact saying, I'm the one that told her to do that. And I was thinking, I already had it. I just couldn't say anything at the time. It's funny. It's always interesting to me how many people try to take credit for your success later on in life.
That's kind of a part of how this crazy business is, for sure. But I mean, I think you have earned this totally on your own, and now you're a hired gun doing these different events. And as you're doing this, next thing you know, you're getting contacted by Netflix to do this 2017 hired gun event. This is incredible to see you there pulling this off. What was that like?
That was wild. They actually interviewed me for that documentary 2 separate times. And it was about a year apart. And within that year, is something funny, if you ever go back and watch it, I actually got sober within that year. So I look like a completely different person in the 2, when you see me in the movie. It was very funny. But it was definitely one of those situations when I watched back, the movie, and I was, it was a pinch me situation, because there I was, with Kenny Aronoff and, the session greats of the world. Steve Lukather is there. And and there's me and Alice as the cover of the thing, when they show it on the airplane. I got on a plane to go on tour, and there was me and Alice as the documentary cover on the plane. I was going, everybody they used us, like used me. Like it was such a surreal and such an honor to be, and to be a part of that experience. And we did this jam in LA to get some B-roll for it. And it's Rudy Sarzo and Glenn Sobel, Alice's drummer, and Kenny and Brad Gillis and Jason Hook and Phil X. And I was going, I kept thinking somebody was going to say that, like, okay, we've got enough. You can go home. Like, let's let the real guys do it now. But no, they kept me in there, and I was really grateful to be a part of it, even as the less experienced hired gun on the set, because it's nice to have the girls out there being represented. It's nice to show that there are girls out here doing what we do too. And I'm not always the one to hype up the male-female thing, but it was really nice to be in there and sort of be that voice for the girls that are the hired guns.
It's kind of interesting because Liberty Devoto, who was also in that show, had contacted me and said, "You got to check it out." He said, "So you can see NITA." I mean, they were very impressed with the fact that you were in that you represented that part of bringing this female, presence to the music industry and delivering it. So listen, as a role model, it's working.
I'm very honored that you said that. Thank you for telling me that. I'm a big fan of his, and he was definitely the most entertaining part of that movie, I think.
So now, 2018, you launched this Kickstarter campaign. Tell me about how you pulled that off. That was absolutely amazing.
The Kickstarter. I think the main thing that I took away from the Kickstarter campaign is that if you build a relationship with your tribe, I don't like to say fans, but we can say fans for the sake of, talking about it, but your tribe of people, if you build that relationship, people want to support you. The world at large these days is so quick to say that the industry is dead and people don't buy records and nobody supports and you can't make a living as an artist anymore. But I think we really prove the world wrong every day as artists by saying, if you give of yourself, if you give, with integrity, and you give people everything you have, people want to support. I actually support other artists, Kickstarters and Patreon pages and all this kind of stuff. So that was my big takeaway for that. We launched a Kickstarter for my first solo album, Control Chaos. I did not know how it was going to do. I produced everything myself. I engineered everything. I knew that we weren't going to need to spend too much money on it. So I set a really modest budget of $20,000, and that would cover the recording costs and studio rental and album artwork. And, I don't know how to mix and master. So that, and hoping, and before I pressed send, before I made the Kickstarter live, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, how am I going to pull this off if people don't want to donate? If rock really is dead and people don't want to support artists anymore, how much of my own money can I afford to put into this thing to keep it afloat? Because Kickstarter, if you don't hit your goal, you don't get anything. Everyone's money is returned to them. Before I went with it, I was thinking about that kind of stuff. How much of my own money can I afford to sink into the Kickstarter itself so I can keep it afloat? So we made it live, and then I went to the gym. This is pre-COVID. And we hit the goal before I got done with my workout. We hit the goal in 2 hours. And we doubled it by the end of the day, and we tripled it by the end of the next day. And by the end of the campaign, we were 800% funded. And that's when I knew people care. If you give people something to care about and they know that you're going to work hard and deliver them this product, they want to be a part of it. And, it's the same reason that I go and contribute to other artists' Patreon pages now, because if people are doing good, you want to support them. There's not a lot of ways that people can support artists right now. So, to contribute to something like a Patreon or a Kickstarter or buy merch or anything like that, people want to do it if they have the ability. So that was an incredible experience. And I feel like it made me feel closer to everybody that was a part of it.
So what was it like writing for that? What was it? Did you feel any pressure? How'd that whole process work out?
Well, there was definitely pressure after it got funded like that. I was like, it better be good. But at the same time, I was really ready. I had been in this hired gun role for a very long time. I was just so ready to get out and speak for myself as an artist. I was just dying to use my own voice. And I feel like a lot of the people out there didn't really know what I sounded like as a guitar player, because everybody's used to hearing me play Alice Cooper songs or Iron Maiden songs or, anything like that. You get a little bit of a sense of what I can do, but not really what I am about as an artist. I was just dying to do it. I wrote the majority of the album on tour with Alice. So I would take my little UA Arrow. It's the same one I use in my home studio now, and just take this, set it up on a hotel room desk on days off or mornings before we go to the show. And those are the final guitars you hear on the record. I did it as a DI and sent it in for a reamp. We reamped, in mix. And it was something I was so proud of. We recorded drums at a studio in LA, and my boyfriend Josh played the drums on it, and I engineered it, which I will never do again. But it was just such a great experience getting to just put it out there and go, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what it's all about. And then subsequently getting to tour on it, getting to go out there and do what I love to do, play on stage and play the songs that I wrote. It's something that most artists, I think, really take for granted, and I just never really got to do. So I loved it. I loved every second of it. I'm working on album 2 right now, and I couldn't be more excited.
Oh, good for you. But you played bass also on the first album, right?
I did, yes. I played bass and all the guitars. My best friend, Kat Scarlett, who's my touring keyboard player, did all the keys, and my boyfriend, Josh, played all the drums. So it was a cool experience having the only people playing on the songs be the people that I love so much. My 2 closest friends, my boyfriend and my best friend, the people that know me better than anyone else and can just really execute those songs and know where I'm going with it rather than just reading the chart, playing what's supposed to be played.
Well, you were really with your tribe on that one for sure.
Yes.
So during this pandemic, there's no traveling going on. Are you home writing now? Are you listening to music? What are you doing now in this time that you've been blessed with?
I have, honestly, I can say without hesitation, this has been the busiest year of my life. It really has, because every artist has been forced to adapt. You adapt or you die. Not literally die, but maybe that's in poor taste to say right now, but you must adapt. You must pivot, in the 2020, 21 era. So I released my online guitar course. I put together a video course of 3 modules that take someone from picking up a guitar from the very first time all the way through like all the techniques that I know basically. And that's called Rock Guitar Fundamentals. And the website is the best URL ever. It's iwanttoplayguitar.com, which I love. I started a Patreon page. So that's where I do weekly live streams with them. I taught my way through almost the whole Alice Cooper set and a bunch of different technique, sort of workshops and everything like that. I've been writing my second solo album, which I'm very excited about. We built this pretty studio that you see behind me. It's barely just getting finished up. So we actually built this from the ground up, which was a huge learning experience. I didn't know how many walls you need to soundproof a room, especially when you have someone like Josh hitting the drums in here. So it's been a whirlwind of a year, but it definitely has also, as you said, been a gift of time. So many things that I wanted to do that I was just getting so overwhelmed with that we now have the time to do.
We talk about the business side. That's such an important part to be able to balance so we can have, so we can monetize and have the funds to move things forward and to make things exciting. Are you a disciplined person? How do you organize all that?
In this day and age, you have to be a savvy business person in order to survive as an artist. It's funny now thinking back, it was before my time, all the times of the super excess and the destruction of hotel rooms and the crashing cars and stuff like that. No, nobody could afford to do that in 2021. So I think you absolutely have to be as much of a business person as a musician. There are so many different facets of what I do now as an entrepreneur, not just as a musician. You have the guitar lessons, you have the fan club, Patreon page, you have merchandise, and we handle all the aspects of the merch from the design to the fulfillment. I have a fulfillment company that I work with, but you have to know your pricing. You have to know how much these shirts are supposed to cost and how much your company is charging you for them, because there are shirts that that people are that merch companies are charging artists for, that artists are paying double or triple what I'm paying for my shirts, because you have to do your research. You have to know, what you're getting. If I put out something like a little mini replica guitar, you have to source those kind of things and, make sure that they're being done right. What else? I have a fitness component to what I do. I do a fitness challenge called Body Shred, which is aimed at getting the music community more involved in being healthier and fitter, because who doesn't need to be in better shape, especially during a pandemic? You need to be healthy. So it's, sort of interfacing with all the companies that are sponsoring that and running that facet of the brand. And it really does go on and on, doing guest appearances, solos on other people's songs, lessons. Really, there are so many things. And I think if you're not having these different business aspects as an artist, especially in a time like this when we can't do what we really love to do, which is tour and play live, you're going to really struggle financially. So you have to be a savvy business person. You have to be able to basically give a Shark Tank pitch on what you do in order to survive during this kind of time.
Well, in doing all this here, I mean, you're really wearing several different hats, and you've got to organize and manage, and you've got to administer this stuff. So it's a pretty intense business that you've built here. But now, then you go and you design a guitar for Ibanez. Talk about that.
Yes. And by the way, I should say before I move on from that subject, I'm so lucky that Josh, aside from being a fantastic boyfriend and drummer, is a great manager. He's been managing my career since 2015, and he handles a big portion of that workload, like the actual, like the business nuts and bolts of it. Because when I used to really, really do everything myself, I was my own fake manager, and I would send emails, and my manager was never available to talk on the phone because it was just me. And I was constantly getting taken advantage of. So it is important to have good people around you as well. For my signature guitar, the Ibanez Jiva, I was an Ibanez artist for 10 years, from 2008 to 2018. And then in 2018, I became the first female Ibanez signature artist, which was a huge, huge honor once again to, Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Paul Gilbert, like all those names I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. These are all Ibanez artists, these are all Ibanez signature artists. So to be the first girl that got to do it was huge. And now they have Yvette Young and Mari Basilio, two incredible female artists that have signature guitars as well. So it's nice. It's nice to be the first, but it's way nicer to be the first of many.
Well, it's a wonderful story because you were also awarded and honored at the 7th Annual She Rocks Awards with Inspire Award, and it was presented to you by Steve Vai. That must have been an incredible experience.
It was, and they tricked me. They tricked me because I did not know that Steve was presenting the award. They told me that it was Nick Bocott, who I absolutely love. He was my A&R rep at Marshall, and he's now over at Sweetwater. And Nick is an amazing public speaker. If you have not heard Nick Bocott give a speech, like he will just bring tears to everybody's eyes. So I already knew I was going to cry. And then I was back in the green room getting warmed up, and I saw Steve back there, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Oh, he lied. Everybody tricked me." And he said he was there visiting or doing something. I forget what he said. It was him, he and his son were just hanging out there. And I was over on the side of the stage, and Nick was speaking, getting ready to give me my award. And then Steve just sort of walked up and like casually stood next to me. And then Nick said, "Steve Vai." And then Steve just walked past me and went onto the stage and introduced me and gave a speech about me. And it was by far I have no words, Dom, to even describe how I felt at that moment, because there's the person who was the actual reason that I started doing this, talking about how I've in turn inspired so many people when he's the one that inspired me. And it was just an absolute dream. And then I had to play. And I was like, how can I play now? It's the most emotional I've ever been. I'm a really emotional. I'm a girl in that sense. I'm a really emotional person. I cry a lot. And so like I was just a mess. I was absolutely in tears. And then I had to play one of my songs, and it was just, I don't even know how I did. I can't even watch the video. I was just so emotional. But it was incredible honor.
Well, those are great tears of joy for sure, because what you're accomplishing and what you're continuing to do is amazing. As you said, you're working on your next solo album, so that's in process now as you go along, and you have the time now to work on it. So you're in the process with Josh making this happen.
Yes, exactly. This is my little workspace we're in right now. It's a good angle that you have because you can't see what a chaotic mess it is in front of me behind my laptop. But this is our little haven right now. I'm just bundled up in here with the heater on. As soon as we get off our call, and we're right back to this tracking for the next record, which I'm very, very excited. It's coming out exactly how I want, which is a good feeling. It's got everything that I was looking to add to it. So I'm very excited.
Boy, good for you. You know, we have all these different musicians that are following us, and they watch these interviews, and I've done over 300 of these interviews, and it's just so great to hear everyone's story and the excitement that they have. In closing, we've got all these people that are out there that are seeing your career. They are fans of yours. You are leading the path for all musicians and specifically for women. In closing, Nita, what would you say to this next generation to inspire them and give them the confidence that they can succeed?
I think the main thing, and this is for men and women of all ages, boys and girls, is don't ever expect that it's going to be easy. I think in this day and age, it's this day, of this time of instant gratification, and everybody expects that everything's going to be easy. I put up a post on Instagram and it's going to get a lot of likes. I put up a video on YouTube and now I'm going to get famous. And it's not enough. You have to work so hard, and there's going to be, I don't have to tell you, Dom, how much rejection there is going to be. And there's going to be times that it works, and there's going to be times that it doesn't work. And there's going to be times that you have the show of your life. And there's going to be times that you trip and fall. And the most important thing is that you never forget why you're doing what you're doing, that you love what you're doing. And if you find the time that you don't love what you're doing, you stop and you find that love again before you lose it. The most important thing is just keeping that passion for music alive. And if you have that passion, you have that love for what you do, everything else will follow. If you get into it just saying, I want to be famous, how do I be famous? How do I get likes? How do I get views? Those things are not the important things. Fans are smart. People will see through that kind of thing. The important thing is that you speak from the heart, you play from the heart, and the rest will follow.
Well said. I mean, you do just that. Your passion when you play, your passion when you speak, and your actions speak louder than words. You're producing so many great musical excitement for people to listen to. This is incredible. Nita, on behalf of the Artist Series at a Distance, I thank you so much. You have done wonderful.
Thank you so much, Don. It was an honor the first time we did this in person. It's an honor again now. Thank you for having me.
Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel, we'll see you real soon.